Okay, everybody. Well, I think we're going to get this ball rolling, and as people jump on, I'll make sure that I try to meet them accordingly so that if there's any background information, I'm able to get to that. Thanks for everybody for being available to watch this webinar series called Hawaii's Most Unwanted Wanted Pests Affecting Trees. So today we're going to talk about a host of insects and a few disease problems affecting Hawaii. And as we go along, please feel free to reach out and send me either a comment or just ask a question. Either way will work just fine for me, because I'd like to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to ask questions as they go along. So with that being said, I'm going to get started. So this is me. My name is Vasquez, and I'm an Arborjet Regional Technical Manager. I've been with the company for just about 5 years now. I've been in the green care industry, specifically the arboricultural industry, since probably just before 1998. And I started into the background of basic tree removal. I'm from the state of Hawaii, so there's lines that grow constantly that, don't require much more than a sharp chainsaw chain and the ability to be safe with the use of one-on-ones. And at the beginning, that's pretty much all I really understood about arboriculture. Since then, I've really had a great opportunity over specifically really the last 12 years on how to maintain tree health care. And tree health care is a lot different than basic plant health care. Obviously, we need to take into consideration the longevity of trees and the fact that when you think about it, 1 human year is the equivalent to 7 dog years. Well, the adverse is correct when you think about what tree years in comparison to human years. 1 tree year could be as many as 25 human years, depending on what species of a tree. You actually, you have to take that into consideration when you think long-term benefits of how you promote and achieve tree health. This is my contact information. The cell number, 808 area code for those of you in the Hawaii marketplace, and my email address for Arborjet, and that is my first and last name, Vasquez at arborjet.com. So these are some of the insects and diseases locally that we are going to be discussing today. Probably the 2 most important that we'll talk about will be the lobate lax scale and the banyan twig gall wasps, and those are both affecting the banyans on nearly every island nowadays. All major islands all have recordings of infestations with those insects. A few others we'll go through today are the eucalyptus beetle and the tortoise beetle affecting the eucalyptus stands on Maui, the ongoing coconut rhinoceros beetle, the ever popular and ever present whitefly on plumeria and just about every other landscape material in the state of Hawaii. And then obviously a couple of odds and ends, the Pacific cockroach beetle and rapid ohia death, which is now currently be calling ohia wilt. I'm sorry. There we go. So these are some of the exotic insects in Hawaii currently. And as I go along, I'm going to be showing some pictures of before and afters and current state of certain trees around the state, and as well as the insects that are attacking them. As you see on this slide, what we have are the main insects that we see right away that are creating major problems for the state. And those two really being right now the banyan stem gall wasp and the lobate lax scale. These two insects are really responsible for the decline of a vast majority of large banyans on all the islands. And these are some of the hardest trees to remove once they ultimately decline and die. So probably the most important to look at and diagnose as potential for treatments using Arborjet equipment and products, of which we have basically the best curatives on the market available for those problems. Another one that we can see today is the Monkeypod Kiavi caterpillar. It's a great defoliator, but also very easy to control. And then, as we see down on the bottom of this slide, what we see is the Urea gall wasp, and that was basically responsible for attacking the native willy willy tree. And that native willy willy tree, other than a few stands on the Big Island and only a couple on the island of Maui, they're holding on to some of the last of the live species. It's unfortunate. But this very small insect has been responsible for the demise of that species of tree. This is what the Urea gall wasp looks like. It mainly, the primary host, obviously, the beautiful willy willy trees. These trees are native and grow in dryland forests and used to be prevalent on most of the main Hawaiian islands, but had their stronghold obviously on the slopes of the Big Island and Maui. There are a few healthy trees on the slopes of the Big Island, and they're pretty readily available to see right off the highway if you're in the Waikoloa area. If you ever are out there, they tend to carry foliage in the spring months now, and then it will drop their foliage later on in the season. They're very sensitive. A lot of stress factors can affect them. Most of them, if they ever were transplants, tend to be overwatered with the wrong type of water, and also have a few other challenges that are immediate based off of the new locations that they're put in. Probably the most infamous one, if you will, the Hualalai willy tree at the entrance to the Hualalai Resort on the Big Island. Beautiful tree. It's had major problems, but in the last 5 years, we've been able to really turn that tree around with systemic injectables, as well as just a few other various changes to the how you water that tree. So, but this insect right here has done most of its damage. What you see is the leaf damage incurring by the galls on the leaves. The leaves don't form properly. Long story short, photosynthesis is not optimal, and the tree cannot produce enough nutritional value, and eventually it runs out of its own energy and will decline and die. And that's the worst with that insect in the state. This is another relatively newcomer to the state. It was first found in Hawaii. It's called lobate lax scale, and it is a very nasty insect. It does produce an enormous amount of honeydew, which will turn into sooty mold. And again, you're going to find this insect most prevalent doing damage in the Oahu, Honolulu area, but it's prevalent on all islands. I've seen it doing damage in trees in Wailuku and Paia Town on Maui. It's in Banyan Drive. Actually, the Lobeck scale is not in Banyan Drive, but the gall wasp, which we'll talk about, is. This scale will, over time, cover the undergrowth canopy, both the leaves and the small twigs, with an enormous amount of black sooty mold buildup from the honeydew over time. This can contribute to the actual canopy leaf drop, which in turn will drop the amount of photosynthesis that occurs in the tree, which will break down in turn the amount of nutrients it's able to store, and over time these trees will collapse. The odd thing about most banyans in the state, they're able to withstand a very hard pruning cycle, but a small insect like this will tend to cause them to decline and die off relatively rapidly. So when you try to remove them and want them removed, they seem to never want to go away. This seems to want to knock them down relatively quickly. And the damage that you can see that's occurred by this banyan stem gall wasp are the little, if you will, galls that are the points of which the eggs have been laid into the new stem growth. This is very noticeable on any of the new epicormic sucker growth down low on banyans throughout the state. You'll be able to see this. It's very easily diagnosable out in the field. Any type of bulbous gall-like growth that you notice on the young stems, you will notice that, and that's indicative of the damage. From far away, the tree will actually look gray. And as you can see in the next slides, the grayness versus what a green healthy tree looks like. The product Triage, which is the active ingredient emamectin benzoate, has been proven to be most effective against this insect. It moves into the new growth and helps prevent those insects from being able to create the new galls. This is a picture of Punch Bowl Cemetery. The first picture was taken in 2013 prior to the initial injections. The bottom picture was taken 3 years later. And as you can see, the color of the canopy and the fullness with the leaf development, that's because the new growth is gall-free and is allowed to develop naturally. The gray that you see in the upper picture is indicative of what happens with all the new growth over repeated infestation. All of the new growth dies back and it creates this growth, basically dieback that creates a nice gray hue from afar. This is a tree on the Olina side of the island of Oahu. And this was taking about 14 months apart. And one of the biggest visuals from the picture that you see right away are the darkness of the picture on the left with an enormous amount of the scale that's in the tree producing the black sooty mold, which darkens the interior of the tree, which makes it look very difficult to actually gain depth perspective. One of the key factors in the differences between these two trees is the amount of sky that you can see through the tree on the picture of the left versus the amount of sky that's visible through the canopy on the right. You notice that the new growth has been protected by the application, and what you have is a thicker, fuller canopy because more of it has been allowed to grow back without attack from these insects. This is a very telling picture. This is another picture of Banyan Drive on Hilo. Sorry about that. Can get back to this right now as best as possible. Thank you. These two trees are right in front of the Gila Hawaiian. And if you notice the overall thinness of these canopies, they're underneath an enormous attack from the banyan twig gall wasp currently. The picture on the left, the name of that tree is the Babe Ruth tree. That one was planted by Babe Ruth in 1934. And if you're able to see this picture, you can tell that portions of this canopy are much thinner than obviously the center of the tree. This tree was treated by myself and my colleague, Dr. Don Grossman, on November 3rd of last year for Hawaii Arbor Day. We have not gone back since then to look at what the new growth looks like. We do plan on being out there in the beginning of May, and that'll be 6 months post-treatment. So there should be some new growth that will show clean, gall-free stems, and that is indicative of new growth and the actual chemical working. So this is a very good thing that we are able to monitor. And so anyone who's out there in the Hilo area in the next couple of months, swing by and take a look at that Babe Ruth tree. You will be able to find a few injection sites that are on the tree down low in the root system. And if you get a good picture, please don't hesitate to send it to me via our website at my email address, which is available on the website if you did not get it at the beginning. Another relatively newcomer to the challenges that Hawaii faces with unwanted pests. This is the coconut rhinoceros beetle. First found in Hawaii in late December 2013. These pests are absolutely enormous. The challenge with these pests is the amount of damage that can be done before they reach a lethal dose of exposure to any chemicals being used to try to prevent attacks on these palms. And so what we're finding is we're currently underneath trials with the Hawaii Department of Agriculture as well as the University of Hawaii Manoa campus as to what chemicals currently on the market and are doing the best for any type of control, as well as a few experimentals that we're currently working on. The good news is that it's on Oahu only. The bad news is that they're still finding pockets of new areas, albeit small, that they are still finding this beetle. So this is unfortunately looking like it's becoming an established pest on the island of Oahu. So far, the best control methods that we are seeing are a high label rate combination of both Acetaminophen and Imidacloprid, those products being acephate and Imidacloprid. But again, the largest challenge that we're running into is the fact that some of these are the size of the palm of your hand, and so they need to eat an enormous amount of green live tissue before they achieve that lethal dose. And what you have a lot of times is demise of the plant material because the damage that's been occurred. It's unfortunate, but we're working very diligently with this to try to find better means of control. And all we can do is just really try to stay on top of any new infestations to the best of our abilities. This is what our field trial looks like that was started in the beginning of May in 2016 in Iroquois Point. We were able to use the military base there, and we found, sorry about that. We were able to find several really good locations and get over 125 palms as part of this trial. And it's an ongoing trial basis being monitored by extension agents as well as staff at UH Manoa. It's been very helpful to help these other departments being included. What we're all trying to do right now is achieve the same overall goal, which is tree preservation. Try not to lose the important things that are make Hawaii beautiful. The next pest that I want to talk about is the Monkeypod Kiavi caterpillar. It's a very good skeletonizer of trees, no matter what size, but they're able to strip any new growth on mainly monkeypod trees, but as Kiavi as well. And they've been found on all of the major islands, and the damage that they do to the canopies is pretty substantial. And year after year, infestations can cause the stress to be built up on those trees. And once the nutritional storage has been depleted in those trees, they actually can decline. And we all are very familiar with the size of monkeypod trees and the fact that most often they can be extremely difficult to remove. The control with this is one or two things. We recommend both Triage and or Imidacloprid and or Acetaminophen for this insect. It could be this caterpillar. It can be very effective, and the results can be quite quick, as we can see in these next couple of pictures. This is a monkeypod taken in Rainbow Park in Kapiolani. This is weeks 1 through 3 after the injection had been taken place. The first slide on the upper left is the day of the injection. And as you can see, 3 weeks later, we're getting a much better canopy formation. It's amazing when you can start to allow those trees to regain their canopy strength and the percentage of leaf formation. They tend to rebound quite quickly if you're able to knock the stress factors off of them. This picture was taken in the Poipu area in the island of Kauai. As you can see, this is a 90-day turnaround. You had terrible problems on the picture on the left. The picture on the right shows 90 days after the injection, great healthy canopy being able to show itself based off of the injection done 3 months prior. Spiraling whitefly. This is a pesky insect. It's notorious for doing a large amount of damage and producing honeydew, which turns into black city mold. One of the most common places you'll find this is in plumeria. And unfortunately, plumeria are everywhere. But the ability to control these whitefly is very good. We use a combination, mostly the Imidacloprid product of ours called Inject, as well as our acephate product called Acetaminophen. Now, depending on how bad the infestation is, you can use the 911 quick product called Acetaminophen to knock them down immediately. However, with a 60-day durability, you have efficacy that wears off, and you'll have reinfestation. Because ultimately what happens with whitefly is it'll live in hibiscus and other landscape material right around plumeria trees. And the moment that plumeria tree becomes able to allow those whiteflies to get back onto the plumeria, they'll move right back on. So the best way to control these whiteflies is to use an actual insect growth regulator called our product called Azisol, and this is an azadirachtin product. It's an OMRI-rated organic product that is a sprayable application, and you're going to want to gain control of the general landscape material that's infested with whitefly. This is imperative to success at limiting the damage that occurs to plumeria, because just if we're allowed to have a plumeria that looks clean for a few months, the reinfestation always occurs as soon as possible because there's so many other infested material in the landscape surrounding those plumerias that you're almost doomed to the failure of the product sooner than the labeled 1 year because of the fact that the whitefly can be so significant in other landscape material. But another more less prevalent, but you will find this. This is called the Pacific beetle cockroach. It looks like a little black cockroach, and most often you will see them in various types of cypress, Norway pine, and other juniper type trees, conifers in our area. The tall cypress that we tend to have lining property lines across the islands will tend to be susceptible to this. What you notice on the right-hand picture is the brown spottiness on that cypress. That's indicative of the girdling that occurs from these beetles actually chewing the bark and getting into the phloem layers of these twigs. And once they girdle them, they brown out, and you're going to see that until it either is pruned out, which can be extremely difficult, or it weathers out over time. This is easily controllable with Imidacloprid. However, because these are conifers that we are trying to treat, the injections can take longer in the overall process to inject them to get accurate dosing, but you can get control. One of the other best controls for trying to minimize the populations in these trees is to get rid of the green dead waste that will accumulate on the inside of these trees, because that's tends to be where they hole up and they make their homes inside those actual trees. And so if we can knock out that dead material, we'll tend to have less places where those insects will hang out and overweather any longer periods of time. So if you can, that's another great option at trying to control those populations if you are not able to actually treat them. Another new and upcoming problem mainly affecting the Big Island is the Macadamia nut felted coccyx. Currently, right now, there's almost no control for this insect. It tends to move with the wind and also with birds that are moving through the orchards. There is even a possibility that they can be carried by pollinators. So this one is an ongoing challenge. It's mainly affecting the Big Island right now. It is a very nasty insect for how small it is, and there are current trials that are up and going on the Big Island. So during the next webinar and some of our next ongoing presentations in the state at the LIC conference this year upcoming in September, as well as the annual CPS conference in Hilo in October, those should have updates, possibly more at that time with the Macadamia nut felted coccyx. This is another terrifying disease that's been basically talked about over the course of the last 3 years extensively on the Big Island. So far, that's the only island that it has been officially diagnosed on. Its main host is the native ohia tree. It affects the entire tree. The trees can fail abruptly, usually within days or weeks. It's not known at this time what the extent of the life cycle stage of this disease is. There are other questions around at what point is the tree exposed to the disease, from which time it actually starts to show the symptoms of the disease. So there's a lot of questions that are still around this. Preliminary controls are good, because this ohia wilt is in the same wilt family as other types of tree wilt on the mainland, most specifically oak wilt. And oak wilt is easily controllable using a product called propiconazole, being the active ingredient. More trials are forthcoming with the ohia wilt. However, the biggest challenge is most of the trees are up in very pristine and sensitive areas. So to be able to just go stomping through the forest looking for trees that are infested to have a trial location is kind of ongoing, and we're working towards that. So far, the nursery stock trials have been very promising, but they need to be replicated out in the field. So that's an ongoing update as they come out, both mainly from the Hawaii Department of Agriculture or possibly the faculty. A few other slides that I do want to throw in at this time. This is a picture of a Monkeypod and Olina. It was believed to have some sort of fungal root problems. There were cankers that were exposed at the base of the tree. What was used was our product called Phosphojet, and the Phosphojet product, as you can see before and after on this actual tree. This is a 90-day before and after picture, and this next picture is at 1 year later. This is the tree here is the tree on that was treated, but as you can see, other trees along the green belt area are showing lack of or some sort of challenge with uptake and or root decay based off of their planting locations. The Phosphojet product has been very effective in this area. The Phosphojet product that we use is very good, and it acts like a B12 for a tree, kind of a very short answer to what it does to the tree. It can be like a B12 stimulant. So why is trunk injection use growing rapidly? Well, because it works and it can treat pest issues and disease issues and nutrient deficiencies. And this is a complete tree healthcare, plant healthcare program that can be done with the equipment. And regardless of whether or not you have piercing, sucking insects or borers or nutrient deficiencies, they can all be applied using the equipment that's produced by Arborjet. The research has proven and the effectiveness of the product has been proven, and this method here is really the most environmentally sound means of applying insect and disease control, and more people are looking towards that. Being that there is very little to no negative public perception, we look to put only a fraction of product into trees based off of traditional application methods where they could be using 10 to 20 times more product than what is used to actually systemically inject trees, albeit the smaller doses of the chemical are needed. It's very profitable because your time on site is very limited. Typically, a 20-inch banyan tree will take you no longer than 15 minutes to treat, in which case that's a very short period of time on site to be able to apply the service, which is then you could easily you create that invoice and bill the customer. Most time sites are limited to just minutes. The potential advantages for systemic insecticide implants and injections. Again, this is the reasons why we want to use this application method. You're reducing the potential pesticide load in areas. Right now, I can tell you current contractors treating for whitefly are using way too much granular imidacloprid per acre, and most of them are off label, which leads to a possible potential liability with the Department of Agriculture. Guys, please remember to read the labels because it's very easy to go over label with certain pesticides. There are no need for bucket trucks to spray large trees. When you introduce the product through systemic injection, it'll reach the entire plant material. So there's no exposure to the public and only minimal exposure to the applicator only during time of refilling or cleaning of the equipment. There's zero drift to non-target effects, and that's very important. Spraying can cause drift effects where you could even be coating plant material that's not wanting to be treated, which can have a negative impact on off-target pests like pollinators. There's very long residuals with most of our products on the market, and they do not have photo or microbial degradation associated with them, which is important. There's also a wider treatment window. Most times if it's windy or rainy, that can be a problem with applying traditional application methods. With systemic trunk injections, those are no longer a problem. There's no impact from wind or rain. You get better results. So the steps to inject with Arborjet. As you can see, the picture on the left, you measure the diameter of the tree using a diameter tape. That will give you the label rate that you need to use based off of the label. You would drill your hole and use a plug setting tool and hammer to set the plug into the tree. The bottom three slides are all methods of the pieces of equipment used to apply our products. The tree trunk components. The plugs are designed to be set into the xylem wood, which is the actual woody material. We want to protect the cambium layer, which is the area of true growth in a tree. This is the only area that is producing both new xylem, which is wood, and new bark material. This cambium layer is the most important area in the entire tree to protect. Damage here can be much greater than other parts of the tree. If you ever imagine hitting a lawnmower up against the trunk of a tree and not making a large wound on the side of it, that wound takes much longer to heal than if you were to cut a limb off a tree. It's just the trunks of trees grow differently, and we need to target the area that loses the most moisture and does the least amount of damage to the tree. We also use a product called an Arbor Plug. The plug is designed like a one-way valve, just like if you were to put air into a ball. When you take the needle out of the ball, the air stays in the ball. Well, this is the same principle. When you put the product into the tree, when you pull the needle out, the product stays in the tree. So you basically have a sealed system, which is very important because it doesn't allow for any future disease or decay that can set into the drill hole that you made.
Okay, take your boots off, please, and your shoes. Hudson, take your boots off.
So this piece of equipment that you see here is called our QuickJet Air. The basic features on this piece of equipment is that it is powered by 3,000-pound paintball air compressor, air tank. It can be filled by any of the local paintball facilities or scuba shops. This piece of equipment, it can be precisely calibrated from 1 to 5 milliliters of dose per trigger pull. It's self-refilling through a priming system. It has a 1 liter capacity bottle. It's fast, productive delivery of product, makes jobs getting done very quickly and efficiently. It's very compact and lightweight and comes with a carrying case. It has a simple on-off switch for operation. And the darn thing is a workhorse. Excuse me, this is a very durable and reliable piece of product.
You got scratchers?
So, guys, I'm getting closer to wrapping up. A few more slides. This Triage G4 carries the general use label. This is the longest lasting control. Small doses are very effective. It's labeled for, at this point, over 25 pests. This is going to be the go-to product when trying to combat banyan twig gall wasp. This is the gold standard. You're going to get 20 to 24 months on average before you may start to see any new gall activity on trees. This product here is our Imidacloprid product. It's called Inject. Very broad spectrum, and you will get a full season of whitefly control on plumeria. If you treat before the whitefly become established and you are able to control the whitefly in the other landscape materials around it. This moves to pest targets in the trees very rapidly. And again, as you can see the last bullet point on the bottom, Lobeck back scale and whitefly. If you're going to use this for whitefly, you need to make sure that you have this in during the early formation of the leaves, because what this will do is make sure that as those leaves develop, they have the product in it, so that should any whiteflies come into contact, they tend to have the best control. This product here is called Acetaminophen. It is an acephate product. It has an extremely large, broad spectrum control. And this is what I would call our 911 product. If you have an infestation of whitefly in a plumeria per se, this you are able to treat, and you will have insects dying out of the tree within hours. The challenge with this product is that it is not durable. It will last on average about 45 days before it starts to lose efficacy dramatically. So what you need to know about that is that if you are going to use it on whitefly, you need to have this in conjunction with Imidacloprid. The Imidacloprid with the acephate will give you a year control. The challenge, as I stated earlier on, is controlling whitefly in the landscape material that's other than something that is injectable. So how would you do that? This product,
please. I'm sorry, buddy, but you're a hounding jacket.
Sure.
Dude.
This is going to allow you to gain control of whitefly in areas like hibiscus, naupaka, and other areas that have serious concerns with whitefly. And how do you do that? Well, the bullet point on the bottom, you apply this in a backpack sprayer or large tank spray capacity where you're coating plant material. And the way that this azadirachtin product works, it works like a true insect growth regulator. So it is a true OMRI organic rated product. What needs to happen is it needs to be used in a very timely fashion in order to get best results to control the population of whitefly by disrupting the growth cycles of those insects. So read up on the labels with this product. It's extremely good product. There's zero oily residue or burning from sunlight, 0 days to re-entry. Most of my customers in Hawaii that use this already are not only landscapers and departments in the resorts that have an enormous amount of whitefly problems, but also all of the flower growers and vegetable growers that have problems with whitefly as well. It's a very, very good means of controlling that insect with an organic product. And probably the best organic product for agricultural use that Arborjet currently has available. One of our last products I want to talk to you about, this is our Phosphojet product. This product is what we are using to try to promote the overall health of trees, but without using macronutrients. And so what we're doing is we're trying to utilize the effects of the plants with this phosphoric acid. And so what we're trying to do is increase the defense genes in the plant overall. And what that does is it protects that plant from other types of fungal challenges that aren't necessarily 100% diagnosable when we can't get into the ground to look at roots, or we don't have the ability to actually look in through any decay problems that might be inside the tree. So we've had great products, great results with this product, and I've shown a couple of those, and I think I have a couple of pictures as well still to go for those. So guys, this is an important slide, and I want you to understand this for how much product you actually use. Because mind you, you're buying liters of product from Arborjet when you're doing work. A 20-inch banyan tree will require 100 mils of triage product. That's the emamectin benzoate for 2 years protection on that banyan tree from the gall wasp. That tree, the triage product that is used is only 4% active in formulation. So what that means is the tree is injected with 100 mils of product based off of the label for that 20-inch tree. Of that 100 mils, only 4 mils is active ingredient for 2 full years of protection. And to give you a comparison, a teaspoon is 5 milliliters of liquid. So a 20-inch banyan tree will have less than a teaspoon of active ingredient in it to give it 2 years protection against gall wasp. It's a much bigger difference in the game when you use such small amounts of chemical and very small means of applying the product using equipment that's very easy to move around and to work with. So, folks, with that, I want to open it up. Should anyone have any questions at this time? That would be great. All righty, everybody. Well, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a pleasant afternoon. And as they say in Hawaii, aloha.